What is it?
Apparently there's some weird guy out front.
Let's all just walk out there in a drunken stupor.
Not even drunk.
What do you want?
Boys, watch my six. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I'm your host, Perry. I got Curtis and Swan with me this week. I'm all fired up. Look, we're recording this basically a couple of days after last week's episode because I'm anticipating what's going to be Hell Week for me at work, and I'm all gung ho for what's about to happen here. So, Curtis and Swan, welcome to the show again this week.
What's up, man?
Why do I have to welcome you guys anymore? You're like the co-hosts.
It's usually my cue to just scream hello.
Yeah.
So that's I'm all right with it.
Subtitles are just like, Perry welcomes Curtis and Swan. Swan.
She honked at me.
Massive honk. Yeah. Anyway, we start every show out with a segment called Flying Blind, where I blind our guests on something that they've never had before. And I did something a little different this week.
It's got ice in it, Perry.
It's a cocktail.
Why is there L8?
People who listened to last week's episode will probably know what this is based on the fact that Curtis just said it has Ale-8 in it. But
Yeah, so I tried to nose this. It just smells like Ale-8.
Yeah, I'm not really getting much bourbon smelling, but it's a cocktail, so like
yeah, exactly.
you're not expecting that.
Yeah, some of them are super aromatic, though. Like the cocktails, especially when they put, like, I don't know, giant trees of mint on top.
True. Aromatic.
Mint branches.
Yeah.
This is not meant to be like an overly imposing cocktail. Yeah, see, now you remember. This is not supposed to be an over-imposing cocktail. I mean, this is... I think it's easier just for me to go ahead and talk about it. So, we had a question last week. I think it might have been from Steven about what are the best like summer cocktails to drink. And I brought up something that I used to make a lot back in the day, but I don't normally make so much anymore. And it's bourbon, Ale-8, and then a splash of orange liqueur. Right? I made it with 101 this time, of course. And then I threw just a dash of blood orange bitters into it as well.
That's what gives it that edge.
Yeah, for sure.
Just like a step above just, a regular Ale-8 and bourbon.
And as much as I love just like a lemonade and bourbon too, I think that this is a little bit more nuanced. I think that but at the same time, a little bit more accessible too. I think that this is a good cocktail for really anybody during the summer. It doesn't taste so much like bourbon that non-bourbon drinkers go, "Oh, I just taste the bourbon and I can't get over it." But
Yeah, I feel like I can actually drink this when it's 90 degrees outside instead of feeling like I'm melting to the pavement, taking, big gulps of 101.
Mm-hmm. Don't do that.
No, it's not. It's not ideal.
Swan's on the side of the road and he's got a handle in one hand and he's just crying.
Yeah, I was like,
oh no, oh, it's hot.
I'll make it there eventually.
Swan, I've never been in that situation. I don't know how that feels.
Apparently I have. Perry's seen it. I don't
On the
remember
pavement with the 101.
The pavement is the important part.
I would kind of consider this kind of a poor man's old-fashioned a little bit.
Actually, yeah.
It's a little bit of a old-fashioned taste, but not quite.
Yeah, without the bitters, it doesn't necessarily have that quality to it. I think the bitters helps to kind of elevate it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it basically has everything that you would typically get from an old fashioned, just in terms of ingredients, is just in a much simpler form.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally.
It's kind of like a poor man's old fashioned.
I get that.
Yeah, and for those, I think I mentioned it last week too. If you don't have Ale 8 in your area, because it's a very Kentucky thing, it's basically ginger ale with a little extra kick. So mix in your ginger ale and some blood orange bitters and whatever you want to mix in bourbon-wise.
They've been advancing the distribution between in Ale 8.
Yeah, it's in Tennessee and Indiana, and I think maybe even Ohio at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not just a Ale 8, not just for Kentucky anymore.
Actually, Virginia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. My fiance was able to find it in Virginia the other day.
Do you guys ever so I don't drink a whole lot of soda ever.
I don't really either.
Yeah, and people are like, do you want a Coke? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't really need it.
I'd rather have
But then
water.
they're like, well, it's got bourbon in it. And I'm like, yep, I'll take it. Immediately, the second it becomes a cocktail, I'm like, yeah, I'm all there.
Is a bourbon and Coke a cocktail?
Yes.
It's
to me. To me.
I think it's a mix.
I don't know if it's
a mix.
Cocktail. Yeah.
I guess. But
I just can't consider it a cocktail because a cocktail, I feel, has to be some sort of combination or not complex, but just a mixture that requires some bit of skill.
Yeah, I feel like cocktails are like 3 ingredients or more.
I feel like I need to be able to not make it by myself for it to be a cocktail.
Yeah. I just feel if you have a bourbon and Coke,
That sounds dangerous. Sorry, go ahead, Kurt.
I feel if you put a bourbon and Coke, you are just taking pretty much like
2 ingredients
Coke
and ice.
and bourbon and ice.
Yeah.
And there's no distinguish between how many parts parts bourbon, parts Coke. You could go 3/4,
Yeah.
bourbon.
It's bourbon with a splash of Coke.
Yeah, so
That's how I like my bourbon and Cokes.
Yeah.
If I ever have them. Anyway. Yeah, I like this cocktail a lot. I just figured, Swan, after we talked it up last week, that you would have the chance to try it and
Absolutely. No,
see what my hype over it was about.
I definitely like it. I don't ever make cocktails. The only ones I ever do are the Eli Mason old fashioned, just because it's so easy.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah, I don't like cocktails either. But this is really solid. I don't even like Ale 8 that much. And I think this is really good.
Well, you would since you're not from Kentucky. I'm just kidding.
Huh.
I'm just kidding.
Heard that before.
I don't care. Bourbon's about inclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
As Perry says.
As I give him the death stare. Yeah. Curtis jumped out my window just now.
Who do you know here?
Anyway, that was Flying Blind. Guys, what have you been drinking recently?
I just had a Four Roses pick.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was pretty good. They do a couple of picks that aren't cast strength. Just 100 proof.
Yeah.
And I tend to avoid those, if I'm honest.
They're typically pretty good.
Yeah, and they're pretty solid.
Yeah.
I think I need to start picking up some more of those because the cast strength are good, but you're paying your money for the cast strength because they're usually like 70-ish, and then these are the same price as what's on the shelf.
Mm-hmm. Who was the pick through?
I don't remember. Chad let me try a little bit of it.
Chad.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
By the way, Chad, thanks for dropping all of these samples on us for no reason. I'm excited about it, but we're just sitting at this table with a bunch of bourbon and then sample bottles that I don't know what to do with.
I'm not going to complain.
No, me neither.
It's great.
I'm just confused. Anyway.
I'm always confused.
What'd
It's
you
a
do?
constant state.
It's a constant state of confusion.
Kurt?
I've been drinking. I killed off my Weller 12. Killed it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I haven't touched
And
mine
that's
in a while.
okay,
It's okay.
Well,
You sound like you're still convincing yourself that it's okay.
It's okay, man.
It's okay.
Well, it's been
I'll get over it.
It's been low for a long time, so I just was like, I'm
Right.
just holding on to this for nothing. Like,
Yeah.
just kill it.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it very, very much.
Sometimes it's nice, too, instead of having like, oh, the family's over, all my friends are over, let's open this bottle and share it. It's just like, it's Tuesday, I'm watching Family Guy.
Yes.
Let's pour some George T. Stagg.
And with this Weller 12, I didn't have. It's not a thing where people come over and I could open it and give some to them because I would be going, oh well, there's nothing. Like it's 2 drops per like 3 people. Mm-hmm. So it just was like, I'm just gonna be selfish and drink this whole thing.
It's perfectly fine. You bought the
there's
bottle.
nothing wrong with
There's
that.
nothing selfish about that.
Yeah. And then I've regrettably been trying to get through that Oregon spirit.
Yeah, well, we all make mistakes.
Mix it in this cocktail. Maybe it'll probably not mask some of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like at the very least you could just ignore it.
Just throw it away.
Yeah. No, I just mean like in the cocktail, like you could just, it's not going to overpower the other flavors. You can just be like,
I introduced
Perfect.
Perry to my handle of 101 that I have that's not actually a handle of 101.
oh yeah, it's your throwaway.
Yeah. Anytime
Blend.
I get bourbon or whiskey that I don't like, it's literally just like I just dump it into a handle of 101. It becomes shot whiskey. So anytime I'm just like, I'm getting drunk tonight.
Yeah.
And instead of having like good bourbon after good bourbon, I'll take like just 2 shots of just whatever this has ended up being. And it's not that bad, actually.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly okay.
I would really like to try that. Can you bring me a sample bottle of your blend?
Yeah, it changes weekly. I should have brought that for the blending episode.
Yeah.
What's in it? No clue.
No clue.
I couldn't even begin to
Just
tell
drink
you.
it. I would be interested in trying that, though.
We'll do that sometime. We could do just like a dump bottle episode.
Yeah, it's not like an infinity bottle. It's like a garbage bottle. It's just...
Yeah, that's cool. I'm just interested on what it would taste like. Anyway, Perry.
So we just got back from staying at we being myself and Lucy, staying at the Beaumont Inn in Harrisburg, Kentucky, which is where Dixon Dedman of the Kentucky Owl fame, his family owns that place, and they have a couple of really, really good Russell's Reserve picks, and got to try both of them last night with dinner as well. That's really been about it of note for me. I've just kind of been, I haven't had a whole lot of time to enjoy special pours recently, aside from daily drinkers. So, yeah, a great, what we've been drinking from old Pear Bear this week. But we got a really interesting and fun episode to dive into this week. This episode comes out basically in the first half of 2019. I figured it would be a good time for us to step back and talk about the year that's been so far and what we have to look forward to. Whether it's releases, whether it's, just the culture or whatever. I think that there's enough for us to discuss at this point, to sit down with each other and make something out of it. So I figured we would first start out with what's come out so far this year. It's been a pretty good year of releases so far. And I know that we last week said that it was like, kind of a dead year. But once I really stepped back and looked at it, there's been some good stuff that's come out this year. Mm-hmm. So the first one that I made note of was the Four Roses Small Batch Select.
It's top of my list.
Yeah, for me,
great
as well.
addition.
There's the Cooper's 100, Cooper's Craft 100 proof,
Didn't think about
which
that.
was a nice addition. All 3 of the Bardstown Bourbon Company releases, the Fusion, the Discovery, and the Pfeiffer Pavitt Reserve. I think those are going to be important down the line, just in terms of premium brands too. I think that those are kind of setting the standard for what new premium brands can be in the bourbon market right now.
Yeah, that's kind of an under the radar kind of release. I feel
Oh,
a
yeah,
little bit
for sure.
Is Not a ton of people know about them, mostly because they're so allocated and kind of limited. But still, when those start kind of becoming a bigger thing, or they start producing like whatever they like their own stuff, if that's the direction they go in, I feel like that was.
Yeah.
That's
definitely
gonna be really, really good. I also feel like Wilderness Trail.
Yeah,
Those
that
releases.
was another one that was on the list. The Rye Mash Bourbon. That I think is going to be a huge release that we kind of look at in 2019. Just that, not only are you taking a craft distillery, but it's 4 years old. It's bottled in bond. I mean, they've gone through the ringer to make something that I think is arguably a really good product. I think that's going to be important for kind of an earmark for craft distilleries coming up in the next couple of years, rather.
Yeah, and if you're looking at premium brands, didn't Old Carter do some stuff this year?
Yeah, they've got Rye Batch 3 coming out
Yeah.
here soon. Or maybe it's already out. I can't remember for sure.
Yeah, Old Carter's doing some good stuff.
The Whiskey Baron collection continues with Bond and Lillard Batch 2 as well as WB Saffel. Bond and Lillard Batch 2 I thought was just marginally okay. WB Saffel, though, I loved. I thought it was a great product. Turkey should really consider adding that rather to their lineup. It doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, have to be, as WB Saffel. It could be a new expression of turkey. But man, it's such a good pour. I need to get another bottle of it. Mm-hmm. I wish that they would release it in something bigger than 375s and maybe a little bit more affordable.
Yeah.
But
I'd love to see it at the price it's at now in a 750.
Oh,
I
yeah,
agree.
I'd totally be fine with that.
Yeah.
That would definitely be okay. Especially with the Saffel one, though.
Yeah.
The Saffel was definitely by far, I think, in my opinion, the best out of the editions.
I would say it's one of the best bourbons that's come out this year. Mm. I mean, we're recording on June 30th, literally halfway through the year.
Yeah.
I think that at this point, it's been one of the best bourbons that's come out in 2019. Another big one, too, Old Forester Rye.
In the 1910, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. That did come out this year, too. Mm-hmm. I think that the reason that the rye has been on my radar more than the 1910 is that I just think that the rye is a better quality product.
It is.
And better value, for that matter.
I used to honestly tell people Wild Turkey 101 was one of the better things to mix with cocktails.
Yeah.
I mean, you used it for this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a go-to. Old Forester, that's what I've started recommending for people. The rye. It's cheap, affordable, decent proof. It's hard to beat.
To use in cocktails?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, yeah. Because there's a lot of people that will tell you that old fashions were traditionally rye. You should use a rye bourbon or just a straight-up rye in it. So, I mean, it's good to use.
Have you had the Old Forester Rye yet?
I don't believe I've had it, no.
Well, Curtis, it's lucky for you that I have it just sitting on my floor right now.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, we may as well have a little bit if you guys are okay with that. Fred Minnick has said that this is his new best value whiskey. Best value American whiskey. I mean, you've not had it yet. I don't want to put too many words in your ears or anything, but I kind of agree with him. I think that it's, at $23, it's hard to beat the quality of this.
I remember distinctly thinking this is different from the rest of their profile.
Yeah, that's very good.
This is a rye for people that don't drink rye.
Yeah, I was going to say it doesn't smell like a rye whiskey as much as it does a bourbon.
Palate doesn't either.
I get a little bit on the finish of that like rye spice a little bit, but no more than I would get on just a rye heavy bourbon.
It's a very approachable rye. I feel like sometimes with ryes, as you start with them, you're going, it's a little too upfront for me.
Does this have like a high malted something in it?
It might. Let me look it up real quick as we're...
Because I'm kind of getting a little bit, but it is definitely not as aggressive as that Oregon Spirit stuff. Mm-hmm. I like it, though. It's definitely interesting. A lot of people are doing that now.
Which would make sense because it is the rye.
Yeah.
Like whiskey.
It does actually have a pretty high malted barley content.
Hey, look at that.
65% rye, 15% corn, 20% malted barley.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I totally get what you're saying there.
Well, a lot of people are doing that. Like another new release from this year, the New Riff Rye. They put that out this year. That's 95% rye and then 5% malted rye.
Yeah. So technically 100% rye whiskey.
Yeah.
Which is, I never thought that I would like a 100% rye whiskey as much as I did the New Riff Rye. I think it's fantastic. Easily one of my best whiskeys that came out this year so far. And I would put the Old Forester Rye toe to toe with that rather in this case.
It's good.
Yeah, man.
It's a great addition.
$23.
Especially for somebody that's not into rye.
Yeah.
You should definitely go buy this.
Yep. I agree. How about Legion?
I liked it. I got a bottle.
I have not had it in a while. Mm-hmm. I was not as keen on it as you guys were. But, I again tried it after we reviewed it the first time. I thought it was okay after that, but I don't know. I wasn't just super keen on it.
You know what I think that thing's missing after having that Nika? You know that smokiness you get from the Nika?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it had just a little more of that in there and a little less of the wine characteristic,
sure.
Yeah.
I think it would appeal to a huge audience. I think that it would be phenomenal. But it's finished in those. It's not the actual whiskey. And I know that the kind of the peaty process comes from more how you treat the grain before you put it in the mash. So finishing, you don't get that quite as upfront.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good stuff. I liked it a lot. And I thought the price point was really fair for what you got. You said it wasn't your favorite thing that came out?
It really wasn't. I thought it was average at best. $40 for it was a little bit more than I would have been willing to pay. I don't know. I just thought it was okay.
I thought it was really good for the price point that you're getting it for. And then also just like the process that it had to go through. Mm-hmm. To get to the final product.
Sure.
Of it was,
that's fair.
First master distilled, then shipped over to be blended.
Yeah.
I think the whole kind of concept of it was really, really cool. And the actual product for me tasted pretty good. I will say I would like it to have more of a refined quality to it or something to that matter.
I get that. Let's see what else. Kentucky Owl Confiscated came out.
Great one.
Yeah, been a fan of that, of course. George Dickel Bottled and Bond, which is a corn whiskey, basically
straight popcorn.
Yeah, buttered popcorn,
as we talked about last time, and then
not bad, just buttered popcorn.
Yeah, exactly. And my last one that I have notes about are the two releases of Booker's that have come out so far, Teresa's Batch and the Shiny Barrel.
I've been a little disappointed from Booker's this year.
So that was something I wanted us to talk about too before we got into what's to come in 2019 and what we're excited about in 2019. It's just, how do we feel about what's been released this year so far? And my very first one was, have we been disappointed with Booker's so far? We're at 2 releases. The first one was met with just kind of an overwhelming meh. And the second one I really liked, but it just seems like the general consensus has been, it's not that good. It's not worth the hype. It's just not there.
I think they may have damaged how people perceived this one because they compared it to Center Cut.
Sure.
And it's just, when you compare it to like your Holy Grail that you had, it's rough. It's like when musicians are like, people are always saying, I wish they would have something like this from their first album. Like, I want more of their first album. If you want more of that, go listen to the first album.
Yeah.
They're doing their own thing now. So when you go back and you're comparing it to your past work, it's a little rough, and it's hard to hold a candle to what you've done before. You really should come up with something different and new, and especially with Booker's where you're, blending more so than anything else. So you're making the ability to have an entirely new expression as opposed to something kind of like what you had before. And especially when you're comparing it to your, crown jewel.
Yeah. And I think it's okay if it has shades of what was, but still is its own thing. I think that's why, to kind of play off of the musician aspect of it, that's why styles are important, but what you do with that style is just as important. I mean, if we had, if it was just small batch whiskeys, just small batch bourbons. And consistently, each of them were exactly the same across the board, across distilleries. That would get boring after a little while. But if you took an individual distillery, like Jim Beam is doing with Booker's, and they have different expressions of a small batch bourbon, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that that is, encouraging drinkers to find out what exactly it is that they like and to take the time to experience different flavor profiles and everything. So while it may have been a misstep so far with these two expressions, I don't think that they're going to go down as some of the worst Booker's releases that have come out so far.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, they're small batch bourbons, and they're trying to do something. I mean, each one gets its new name. You don't want every single one to be the same exact product because you'll be sitting there going, well, Kentucky Chew's the same as, Kathleen's batch or,
Sure.
something like that.
Yeah.
To where, you want to have those differences. I will say those two, so far the 2019 editions, I don't think they've been as...
They've not been as strong.
They've not been as strong as
Or
last
diverse.
year's. Yeah. But we're also only halfway through the year, and maybe we'll get a couple more that are... What if they're better than last year's 2018? Then we'll be talking about something totally different.
Yeah, for sure. There is a really interesting conversation that's going around right now, too, about bourbons in 2019. And that is the market price. So we're seeing a price increase in products like Weller 107, which is jumping from about $25 basically to $50. So a 100% increase. Come later this year, we talked about it on last week's episode, the Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond is going from a 6-year to a 7-year and basically jumping 3 times in price. So from $13 to $40. There are just a lot of discrepancies that are being considered when it comes to the market value of bourbons in 2019 currently. Are we getting into an era where products are being overpriced and undervalued?
So with a price increase, I think something very specifically, it's if you have a product that you can't find on the shelf and you're raising the price to either deter people from buying it up at such a cheap price and reselling it, or even just to, hopefully make more of it, make more money to then up your, amount you're making, so later on you'll have more product. If you're doing one of those two things, I'm perfectly okay with you making a little more money. Like Buffalo Trace, they're charging more money, but they're also doing a massive expansion right now to hopefully give me more product on the shelf when I go to shop. I'm okay with that. The people that I have issues with raising prices is when you're constantly seeing one product on the shelf and it just doubles in price. That's when I get kind of iffy on it.
Yeah.
So, as long as distilleries are basically taking the money from, the extra money coming from stuff and using it as an investment, I'm perfectly okay looking at that product and saying, I'm basically endorsing Buffalo Trace. I'm endorsing Heaven Hill.
I'm on the same front on that. I guess the only thing I would be like, okay, maybe not, is the quality of the product has to be there if you're going to make the price jump.
Yeah.
Because I also think we're living in a time where we're kind of having a market correction, sort of a little bit, in the sense of,
absolutely,
hey, we've been enjoying some really, really good bourbon for dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And now I think we're at a point of like, oh, we've had the bourbon boom. We're having people throughout the entire country, throughout the world going, oh, this bourbon thing's like really good.
Yeah.
And I think that high in demand is also causing those prices to go up. But I agree with you on, the quality has to be there. And then I'm okay with looking at those prices if they are taking the ones that to adjust for some of those, limited quantities and expansions.
Yeah. there's a lot to take into consideration. I also think the craft market's kind of thrown everybody for a loop.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you look at a 4-year that just came out, like New Riff, and you're thinking, well, they're fetching $60. I got a 10-year on the shelf for 30. You know, I mean, it's no longer like that competitive nature that drives like the whole capitalism aspect. They're like, I can mark this up and nobody's really going to say anything because if they get in that comparative mood and look at the other stuff on the shelf, I'm not doing too bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for them to, especially like Buffalo Trace, look at Weller 12, $25.99 suggested retail, and then think, I'm making enough money on that. There's somebody in the marketing department just losing their head right now because they're like, charge triple. Like, I mean, I totally get it. I'm glad that some of them stay away from doing that just to, please the customer instead of pleasing the shareholders. That's great.
And I agree with everything that you said. I think that it makes sense that distilleries are raising the prices, but is raising the price of your product going to lead to the inevitable? And I say inevitable even though, I don't anticipate it happening anytime soon. Bursting of the bubble or ending of the boom. I mean, it's one thing if 107 is unavailable. It's another thing entirely if it's available and twice the price.
Mm-hmm.
See, I mean, is that what's going to be the downfall of the bourbon boom? Will the bubble bust? I mean, I don't know. I don't think that it will necessarily, but I could see why it would. But go ahead, Curtis. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely could see that happening too. Is if the prices keep getting upped and they're higher prices, and we're starting to see some of these more available bourbons like a 107 or a 12-year, which I don't think that'll ever happen. I think they'll probably keep that kind of this limited stuff. But is there a point where we get oversaturated, like with bourbon? Because we have all these craft distilleries doing their thing. There's people dropping their age statements. There's people that you don't know what the age statement is, and then you have, all these different things. Is there a point where we have too much saturation?
I don't know. I mean, I have no input. I just hope not. Like,
I mean, these are all kind of existential kind of questions.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to be able to find Weller 107 on the shelf, even if it was double the price, just constantly. But I know there's some people too that, and me included, I'll look at somebody charging $45 for Henry McKenna, and if I take a step back, I look at that bourbon, I'm like, it's totally worth $45. 10-year, $45, Henry McKenna. But then I also look at it, and the inner me is like, it used to be $32, so don't buy it. Like, depends on what mentality you take towards seeing that on the shelf at a higher price, I guess, is what's going to drive the bourbon boom. If you're the inner voice in my head, it's bourbon boom's coming. If you're the guy that's like, well, it is worth it to me, then this is going to live on for a good while.
Yeah,
so.
and then eventually, people who are just turning 21 or, just getting into bourbon, they're going to be like, oh, that's the price I've always known it as.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then you're like, well, this is no difference to me. I can just actually find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas us, and I'm sure that's where kind of the older guys are like, back in my day. Yeah, we become that.
Oh, boy. I didn't realize we were that close to that happening, but we're really close to that happening.
Really close? Are you kidding me? Back in my day, I could get Henry McKenna and Heaven Hill 6-year on the shelf constantly. Nobody knew about it. Back in my day, Elijah Craig 12. It's already happened.
Let's put a pin on the Heaven Hill conversation just for now, because I think that's going to be important, talking about what's to come in 2019 too. I want to talk too about what do we want from the industry right now? Because I'm not entirely sure that the industry is in tune with its consumers. I see, price hikes where there don't need to be. We see age statements either going away or, being dropped or, whatever, maybe where they don't necessarily need to be. I see companies not catering to their immediate consumer. What do we want from the industry, not just in 2019, but beyond? I think that there is still something to be desired in the way that the industry operates. But what do you guys think?
If I were gonna peg two things that I want, and I'm gonna use two distilleries as an example of this: Four Roses and Wilderness Trail. I want people that are putting out solid, large-scale releases of good bourbon at a higher proof. So
Yeah.
they're putting out a great new release, the Small Batch Select, and I think it's solid, it's appropriately priced, and it's available. That's what I want. Secondly, Wilderness Trail. When I go to Colorado, or if I want to go to Florida, or just anywhere I travel, I want to be able to pick up something local. I mean, you've done that before.
Yeah.
And when I ask somebody at a liquor store, what do you recommend? And they're looking at the liquor shelf, and there's like 20 or 30 different local-ish bourbons, and they're like, I don't know, man, they make this in the town over. Well, great. It's probably really not that good. But when somebody comes to Kentucky and I'm like, hey, buy some New Riff, buy some, Wilderness Trail, I don't feel bad about telling them that it's local. And I mean, look at, like, if I went to Colorado, for example, and I got there, I'm going to shout out a small little distillery that's doing some great stuff. 80 Laws, 4-grain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I love that stuff. It's pretty good. I mean, granted, the longer they leave their product in, the better it's going to get, but they're meticulous, and it shows. I want to be able to travel places and get more of a local vibe as well, and it not be bad product. So that's what I'm looking for.
It's the same way. What you are talking about, what you are implying, is the same way that beer drinkers approach traveling. I mean, I'm the same way. I'll go somewhere different, and I'll go, well, what's your local brew? What do you have on draft that's local? And that's usually what I want to try. I mean, I can go anywhere and get Budweiser. I can go anywhere and get, at this point in the Southeast Yingling, it's just, I want to go to different places and see what they have to offer. So yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, that's super. I mean, Swan kind of hit it right on the head on a lot of this. That's what I want to see is some of these more craft distilleries putting out just high quality product, but it being local to these cities. And I know that's a little. It's not. It makes us drop down this little selfishness kind of fence of, oh well, this 99% of the bourbon or whatever is made in Kentucky, and I love that. And that's, yes, go Kentucky for that, which I love, and I want that to still be a thing. But I also do want to see some of that, hey, craft distillery, go try out this Cincinnati bourbon that I've had.
Yeah. Or
It's
even
tough,
like
though, because the timing, they have to wait longer.
Yeah.
So how do they do that? That's the difference between the brewing, like breweries and distilleries.
For sure.
But I would like to see kind of more. I'm a big fan of small batch releases, so I think I would love to see some more of broader small batch releases from like Kentucky distilleries and well-known ones, and to be able to have that, not so much just the single barrel.
Yeah. So, but before we go too far, what I just poured for us was E.H. Taylor Small Batch. And one of the reasons that I did it was because, I mean, not only do I love it, but I want to see this come back. I want to see this in large quantities be released into the market. And I understand that the supply way underweighs the demand. There is a huge demand right now for some of those quasi premium spirits. But man, if I could go into a store and find Taylor Small Batch again, just on the shelf, I would love that.
Yeah.
I think what I'm getting at is that I would like to see wider releases, wider distributions of products that, we at this point consider allocated, whether or not allocated is a buzzword, for this day and age. I just think that we're at a point where we could start seeing this happen again. Maybe it takes a couple of years. Maybe it's just not ready. I'm okay with that. But I want to, in the next little period of time, see allocated products become unallocated. Become standards, yeah.
Yeah, because I do get somewhat tired of walking in and being like just going into a liquor store and being like, oh, let me scan all 5 shelves and being, well, nothing I could get here, so,
Yeah.
Or nothing I can get here that I can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
This is going to be super personal for a second. Do you guys also have the thing where you feel like people look at you like you're stealing if you don't buy something?
Yes.
So
Yes.
when I walk into
I
liquor
get that.
stores, I'm like, I scan all the shelves real quick, and I'm like, nah, there's nothing really here that I want. I look for the age-stated stuff that's on the shelf and old, and then I start like walking towards the door, and I'm like, they probably think there's something in my back pocket.
Yeah.
Like I just immediately hit that feeling.
Yep. I feel the same.
But I get what you're saying. I'm tired of walking in and scanning the shelves and being like, well, this is everything they had last week, and it's truck day. Like,
Yeah.
what gives?
So that leads me into the last question before we talk about what's about to come out in 2019. I try to remain optimistic about what's to come for the bourbon market, for the bourbon industry. Do you all find yourself more inclined to be hopeful or a little bit more dismayed for the immediate future of bourbon?
Hopeful for trying great new releases, disappointed that a lot of the great new releases are probably not ones I'm going to be able to find.
Yeah. I get that.
That's-
I totally get that.
That's where I'm at. I mean, I know at some point this November, I'm going to be in 5 to 6 different layers with a ticket in my hand in the liquor barn parking lot, hoping someone calls my number. And to me, that's like, I'm excited for that moment, but you take a step back and look at it and you're like, oh snap, 15 years ago, they just found that on the shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, that hurts a little bit. But the second that one of us gets, like any of my friends that drink bourbon gets a bottle of George T. Stagg this year, it's like half the bottle's gone because they're letting everyone try it. That's a great sense of community.
Wait, before I let Curtis answer the question, I gotta ask though, do you find that to be good or bad for bourbon? That people are willing to go out and wait for specific bottles in the cold?
Depends on the purpose for me.
Okay.
If you're out there
Sure.
because you want that bourbon, you want it in your collection, you want your friends to try it, and that's just something that you crave is a new release of something special that you can have at Christmas with your friends and so on. I think it's a phenomenal thing for bourbon because you're waiting in line with people that enjoy the spirit that you love. That's great. That's fantastic. What I hate is what I saw with the Michter's 25 release. And this is nothing against Michter's. I love it. But it was so pricey that the second that it started hitting, people were like lining up for this stuff. And I'm you want to be optimistic and think, great, they're buying this because they want it. No, they're buying this because they can flip it for 3 times the price in the parking lot.
Yep.
That hurts a little bit, and I think that's terrible for bourbon. And it's not going to stop. I don't even anticipating it like it's stopping, but it's harmful, because then it doesn't give the people that actually were willing to share and get the name of that distillery out access to stuff and try it. It's rough.
Yeah, I think I'm super hopeful for all the editions and renditions of bourbon that we are going to try throughout the rest of the 2019 and in the future. I mean, how do you not? Because, I mean, these distilleries are putting out great products. and thinking of new ways of doing it. We have craft distilleries that are starting to pop up, and I assume that they will keep popping up that will have these high quality products. I will say, you do kind of have. There's just going to be these ups and downs. I feel.
Absolutely.
I'm disappointed in some of those things, but I think we're in a time where it's just like we're going from high to low to high to low, and I think eventually that's going to end up being kind of an upward incline towards the end of 2019 as the future comes on.
Yeah.
But right now, I think we're just like in a very like turbulated space.
Yeah, I think overall I'm willing to give the industry the benefit of the doubt. I think that, that it sounds counterintuitive, but I think that they probably have the best interest of bourbon drinkers at heart. That being said, though, I understand that, to quote Bernie Lubbers, it's a bourbon industry, not a bourbon charity. And I get it. I understand it. I'm not going to argue with it either. But I think that, you also need to know your client base. You also need to cater to your main consumer. Whether or not distilleries are willing to do that into the rest of 2019 and into the future, I mean, that's to be determined. This is a conversation we can have for a really, really long time, I think. But I remain cautiously optimistic, I think is what I would say. Shall we talk about, though, what is to come in 2019?
Yes.
Because
I've got something that's
super
flying
excited.
under the radar I want to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about something that's been super high profile over the past couple of weeks. Swan, you and I have already talked about this not necessarily at length, but we've established our views on it. Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond 7-year. National release, $40, up from 1 year, so, 6 years to 7 years, and from $13 to $40. It's a bit of a conundrum. I mean, where we go, I understand why they're doing this. It was undervalued for a long time. This was a long time coming. I'm curious how you feel about this, Curtis, because I haven't heard your feelings on it yet.
Yeah, I think it was an undervalued bourbon, definitely. There's no reason that bourbon should have been at that price point. And I think it just is some.
That's a really good way of putting it, though. It's like, why was it that way?
Yeah, it never should have. I think it had something to do with it was allocated only to Kentucky. It was only released in Kentucky, and I think it was under the radar. It was under the radar until people started having it, and it was like, oh wow, this is really good. I think they noticed that, and then they said, hey, okay, we're going to take it off, and we want to give this to the bourbon drinkers out there. We'll up it up one more year. It's going to be a great product. I do think that they jumped a little too high with the price.
Yeah.
It's too high. $40 is too much for the 7-year Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond bourbon, in my opinion. I think if you're sitting at 30, I think that's a solid number. I'll take it.
Now that you guys are both here, do you like the branding?
Oh yeah, I love
Yeah,
the branding.
I think it's
it's beautiful.
Bottle better?
I really like the branding.
Oh yeah.
Overall, I think it's gorgeous.
I thought they did a
Yeah.
good job. I wanted to wait till there was 2 graphic designers, so hopefully you'd fight each other, but
No, it's good.
No, we agree.
And I think that ultimately, that also adds to the upping of the price. Yeah, I just don't think it should be $40.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that at a 7-year bottled and bond, it's okay for them to raise the price? Swan and I have talked about this already. For them to raise the price of Henry McKenna 10-year bottled and bond to like $40, $50.
See, that's where I go. I think it's okay for that to happen.
Yeah.
If-
Okay and inevitable is how I feel.
I think Henry McKenna 10-year should be at $40 to $45 a bottle. I think the Heaven Hill 7-year bottle and bond sit at like 30. You're getting an extra 3 years of age.
Yeah.
And arguably, I mean, Henry McKenna's a single barrel, so that's kind of a tougher thing to do. But
That's a really good point, actually. No, honestly, like
So
that's
I
that's
just-
something that I hadn't really considered before. Is that you are striving for a single barrel profile that encapsulates what that brand is as a whole, whereas you have a 7-year product that is a culmination of X amount of barrels.
Mm-hmm. So then you sit there and we're just in a weird time, I think. I
Yeah.
mean, you sit there and you go, okay, we have a 10-year bottled and bond single barrel Henry McKenna. Well, geez, man. If you're sitting at a Heaven Hill 7-year bottled and bond and it's wide release and it's sitting at $40, Henry McKenna should be, if you're looking at price, strictly at price,
At least 50.
should be at like 50, 60.
Yeah.
I could see it being 60.
I don't know.
Easily. I mean, based on that point, I think it could be $60.
So that's why I think 40 is too high of a price point.
Man.
And that I think that Heaven Hill should be at 30. Because you have
Yeah.
these other
Yeah.
brands
I see that.
and
I see
additions that I think at a fair price, $40 for Henry McKenna is like solid.
Yeah. I mean, then they've got the Elijah Craig 12-year, 60.
that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one that I've told Perry repeatedly. Like, I will pay $100 for that bottle if I find it, and it's the release I need,
The barrel proof.
the barrel proof. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something I feel is worth it. Like on
Yeah.
secondary. So I mean, it's not something that I'm going to be able to pick up as a daily drinker by any means, but it's definitely worth more than the quoted $59.99 suggested retail. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just find myself going, these bourbons I would pay more for.
Yeah.
But what's the stair step between all these?
I agree.
yeah,
I think that's going to be a big thing in the next 5 years of where do these bourbons sit?
Yeah.
well, they've done a good job with Old Fitz, and we'll get into it later. But price wise, they've been basically $10 per year, close to
Yep.
every time.
Yeah.
I feel like that's perfectly okay. They've set a standard and they've stuck to it. That's great.
Yeah. I agree. How about the 1792 12-year that's coming out?
I'm pumped.
I'm excited for it.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever had Barton juice that old before.
I don't think I have either.
Actually, you know what? Pretty sure that Cream of Kentucky is Barton sourced.
It could be, yeah. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but
But that's 11 and a half years.
I had that and I wasn't
So-
super excited. So I'm hoping this is better than that.
I hope so too. I mean, that will go into our whole 1792 episode that'll come out next month for sure. I am excited for it. I think it's going to be a good product. There aren't a whole lot of 12-year-old bottles out there anymore.
I hope they do pics of it.
Oh, there
wow.
you go. That's going to be the money.
Because they did bottled and bond pics,
Yes, they did.
and a lot of them.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they've got 12-year pics.
How about Makers 101?
That's one of the ones that, there's 3 specifically that are flying under the radar for me. That's one of them. I'm going to be driving to Laredo to probably pick one up.
I more than likely will too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be, what, July or August when that comes
I think
out?
they said July. They said it was going to be a month, and the article came out about a week from earlier.
Yeah.
So it's probably like 25th or so it came out. But I'm excited for it. I want to put it directly up against Wild Turkey 101.
Oh, heck yeah.
Anytime somebody comes out with a proof that's 101 proof, you're like, I see who you're testing.
Okay, but
You're going out at the Russells, man. I mean, I just like the idea of like the master distiller from Wild Turkey and the master distiller from like Makers getting together in a boxing ring and going at it. Like it's just phenomenal.
I would like to do 2 different flights. I'd like to do a flight of just 101 proofs once this is available. And then I would also like to do a flight of just the makers releases.
Yeah.
Because now we have regular makers, we have 46, we'll have 101, and we'll have the cast strength.
Yeah, and the private select.
Well, yeah, sure, but I would exclude the private select just because they're so they differ so much from pick to pick that I think that if we went with those core 4, that would be a really interesting flight to have.
You know what I'd like to see them do with the Makers 101? I'd like to see all their commemorative bottles that come out be replaced with 101.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like the UK.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I'd love to see it because then it would be distillery exclusive and commemorative exclusive.
Yeah. Yep. What?
That'd be fun.
Go ahead.
That is interesting. I don't know if that'll happen just because.
Oh, no, it definitely won't. I want it to, but it definitely won't happen.
Because Keeneland has, like, every single year, they have the commemorative bottle signing with, like, whoever it is that year. I don't see it changing in the next couple of years, but, I mean...
Make it happen,
I'm
Kurt.
all for it. I mean, I'm all for it. I don't have that power.
The next one, too, that I want to talk about, this has been brought up a lot recently, but that Knob Creek is going to be getting its age statement back of 9 years.
And more.
And more, but I think that what I understand is that's going to be the limited release for this year.
Yes.
Apparently, it's getting another age statement in the form of 12 years. Mm-hmm. Here's my thoughts on that. At 9 years and 100 proof, it's really good. Is it as good at 12 years and 100 proof? Because that's more water that they have to add.
So here's my thing. I think everyone's looking at Elijah Craig Barrel Proof and seeing that 12-year mark and think they are knocking it out of the park. And they just want some of that.
That's true. Also, we are drinking the Knob Creek 9-year small batch, 100 proof.
So I'm excited for that 12-year because I just want the richness and the depth to come in, especially since they're doing 14, 15-year picks of the Knob Creek. There's some people that would just prefer it at 100 proof. It may not be my favorite thing, but for them, that's perfect.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the 9-year coming back, thank goodness.
I'm all about it.
There's so many people that were like devastated over Elijah Craig dropping the 12, and I don't see them ever going back to that, and that's perfectly fine. The fact that they dropped it because they're like, we don't have the stocks for this right now, and then brought it back, it shows that they saw that they, either made a mistake or that people really wanted right where it was at, but they had to make an adjustment temporarily. Because there's so many people that are like, I'm going to make a temporary fix, and that becomes the permanent.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're coming back again. And
that's just to go back to the being hopeful about the bourbon community and bourbon industry. Like, they are really taking our input into account. I really feel like that.
Absolutely.
Distilleries are looking out for their customers.
So Jim Beam, if you're listening, thank you.
So much. And the Bakers.
Yeah, Baker's is going to be a single barrel. And 9 years old, right?
9 year, I believe so. Can you imagine doing a Baker's barrel pick? That'd be wonderful.
My eyes rolled back in my head.
So Jim Beam, if you're listening.
Man, that would be a great first barrel pick for This Is My Bourbon podcast to do.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to start talking about that. I think that that's something we could probably do within the next 6 months or so.
I think so. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that's
cool.
That's to come. That's throwing it out there and everything. Rebel Yell 100 proof.
I'm excited for that.
Not a whole lot of 100 proof weeded bourbons out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the availability is going to be like, but
Well, they've already got one, and it's their what is it? The 10-year. It clocks in at 100.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So
yeah.
If it's even a portion of that and it's readily available, I am all over
Yeah,
it
no
because
doubt.
there's so many people that look at Rebel Yell like that's the garbage that sits on the bottom shelf, and then they have that 10-year and they're like, I need to revisit their entire collection.
Which is like 10-year in Rebel Yell.
Yeah, I mean they've got quite a bit. down
Avoid
it.
this bourbon at all costs.
Gosh, it's so bad.
That is a funny story because there was somebody that was like, oh, I'm getting really into bourbon, and I saw, oh, is that the 10-year Rebel Yell? It was at a bar, and they were like, Rebel Yell? And I said, I know
hope it was in that voice.
it was.
I had to do this a little bit with you too because I was like, I found a bottle of
You
Rebel
did,
Yell
yeah.
10, and you were just like, yeah, what else you got? Like,
You were like, listen, get this. And I was like, I know it sounds terrible. And they were like, I don't want to spend that money for that. And I was like, I know it sounds terrible. Just
give it a
trust me.
shot.
Just trust
Just
me.
shut up and give it a shot.
Yeah. And then they tried it and was like, wow.
Yeah. The next one on my list is the Wild Turkey Master's Keep Cornerstone Rye.
I'm nervous about this one.
I am really excited for it.
I can see why you're excited, and being on your rye kick, that's great. But I'm nervous.
Still
because,
on it.
Yeah, I'm just nervous because ryes don't sell too well in gift shops and stuff, and I just don't know. I mean, you're gonna get the initial release of like everyone that collects it is gonna pick it up, but I don't know. I hope it's magnificent. That's great because I do like their 101 rye, and it's hopefully gonna be resemble that with extra age.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the 101 rye. This is actually going to be 109
Okay.
proof, and it's a blend of 9 and 11-year-old barrels. Well, 9 to 11-year-old barrels. It's all wild turkey juice. 52% rye, 36% corn, 12% malted barley, cast strength, non-chill filtered. Not a whole lot of cast strength and non-chill filtered rye whiskeys on the market. I know that Master's Keep tends to skew a little bit more towards the premium side of whiskeys, but I don't know, man. I think this is going to be something pretty solid once it comes out.
Yeah, I could see that. I hope this is the new Booker's Rye, to be honest. I'd love that for them.
Oh, that'd be great.
Just super collectible. Everyone
Yep.
loves it. It's for bourbon drinkers, not rye drinkers. I'd love to see that from them.
Yeah.
Because they deserve it, man. They put so
They
much
totally
quality
do.
product out there, and they keep getting labeled as the college drinkers, shooting whiskey, and that's just rough.
For grandpa's bourbon.
Grandpa's bourbon, yeah. They just feel like their demographics all over the place when really it should be on your bar cart all the time. Kurt can fight
Unless
me
you're
on it.
Curtis.
Yeah, unless you're Kurt. But
Which is fine. No, we're not upset with you about it at all.
I am, but it's
Which
fine.
means
I'm
they're
not.
upset with me.
Hey, man. Hey. No. This is not what This Is My Bourbon podcast is about.
Listen, we need to fight. We were we were mad at the beginning of this. We can fight. It's all good.
We were mad halfway through. We're going to be mad at the end. Anyway,
I will say, rare breed, that should be on everyone's cart.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Because that rare breed is something special. And I hope they always keep that as a line for Wild Turkey. I don't know if has it always been?
It has been. I think it came a little bit later than the 101 and the 81 proof that they did. You good? All right. It came a little bit later than the 101 and the 81 proof that they did. But they do, I think they're on their fourth or fifth release of it.
Yeah.
They just keep changing it a little bit. And the proof, which is great because it seems like, at least from I know the episode that we did, they kind of seem like they're improving and adding more depth to it, which is fantastic. And the Kentucky Spirit, is that what it is that they put out? Yeah, I mean, some of those picks are phenomenal. It's all coming out at 101 proof. It's another great one to keep on your bar.
Yeah, for me, I'm just sitting there going, it's literally anything other than 101 that I'm always on board.
So I'm curious because this is basically 12 to 15-year-old 101 finished.
Okay. Finishing what?
Oloroso sherry casks.
You got to give me a second. I'm sorry. I was just... It went down the wrong way, and like how it like burns all of your esophagus.
Yeah. That's what happened with me earlier, and I barely made it.
I need to take a second.
Because, I mean, Rare Breed, Kentucky Spirit, Russell's. That's funny.
What sort of Men in Black shit is coming out of you right now?
Wow, I think I could smell what you had for dinner.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. It's a good thing this is my microphone.
I would not want to imagine a pop filter in front of your microphone.
Like, I don't know what it is. Literally everything except the long branch and
That's got an
101.
audience. That's not me.
Yeah, Long Branch and 101. Those two. It's not me.
Sorry.
All right, let's just
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying to get this
I'm sorry.
back on the
Let's just
rails
start
here.
So you don't like 101 that much. It's totally fine, but I've got Wild Turkey Revival. I'm gonna go ahead and
Yeah.
so I've poured some of this. It's 12 to 15 years old. It's finished in Oloroso sherry casks. So I'm curious to see if like that changes it a little bit for you, because I have to imagine it's still 101. Hopefully it kind of bites some of that characteristic off for you.
I feel like it probably will, just with the sherry cask, but we'll see.
I really wish that I could have this with a cigar. It smells very tobacco on the nose.
He's making a face. Get out of here.
No. No, I'm saying this is really, really good.
Okay.
Oh, it was
No.
a good face.
Yeah, this is.
You made
good
a
face.
yummy noise.
Yeah,
That's good.
it smooths it out, man.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
It smooths everything out. It takes all the rough edges that 101 gives me and just smooths it all out. I think it's the extra age, not necessarily the finishing sherry cast.
I'm all for it. I'm all for this. I wish they had a regular release that was finished somehow.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, that's why this release came out, because the original turkey sherry cask finish didn't work. I mean, it just straight up didn't work.
Sherry signature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And with sherry cast finishes, a lot of the time it's very well known that it is finished in sherry cask.
It is, yeah.
And this, honestly, if you didn't tell me, I'm not sure I would be able to pick it out.
That's true. It's got a little bit, but I think it might just because I know it's there.
Yeah, I mean, it has a little bit, but I just think that they're doing something different than any other finished in sherry cask.
Like the Bell Meads that we had,
Oh yeah,
that's just gonna slap you in the face with whatever's
Yeah.
finished in.
for sure.
They said it's pretty finicky too. Like I know that Jefferson's has talked about this, that basically they sweat the barrels quite a bit in a lot of these finishing processes, and that sometimes they have to check it almost daily, because it could be that it's in there for 42 days and it's finished.
Right.
Could be that it takes 3 months.
Yeah.
And comparatively to the 12 to 15 years this sat in a turkey barrel in one of their warehouses, that's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take long to do the finishing process.
No, not at all. We will round out the rest of this year's releases. I mean, it's easy to talk about, the antique collection, the Van Winkle collection, Four Roses small batch, limited edition that's inevitably going to be coming out at the end of the year too. The rest of the Booker's releases too. But I think that the highlight for the rest of this year actually comes from Buffalo Trace. And there are 4 big releases that are going to be coming out. The first one is the E.H. Taylor Amaranth, Grain of the Gods. I'm really, really excited for this just because I've had it and I know how good it is. From what I understand, over the past couple of weeks, they've actually been bottling it. So we're going to see it hit the market pretty soon in the second half of 2019. I've not had anything bad from, except for maybe, a couple of single barrels, but from the E.H. Taylor line. In this case, I think this is going to be a great addition to the E.H. Taylor line of products from Buffalo Trace. The Old Charter French Oak also is a product that I've had in the past. Bourbon that's aged in French oak barrels instead of American oak barrels. It's going to have a little bit more of, I would say, a wine characteristic than a bourbon. But it does still maintain some of the bourbon aspects that we know and love and everything. There's a pretty big release that's going to be coming out, though, this year that has been passed by the TTB but hasn't been announced by Buffalo Trace yet. The Elmer T. Lee 100-year tribute bottle. I'm here for it, man.
Aged 100 years.
Yeah.
It's just an empty bottle.
Yeah, exactly. It's got a half ounce in it. Literally the last drop.
Just shoved a stave. It's just barrel shavings.
Ooh. No, I'm excited for it.
Get a lot of splinters.
When you're drinking it,
Yeah.
just all down your tongue. Yeah. No, I'm excited for it. I think this is going to be a really cool bottle. I want to try this, not secondary value. If I can find this, on the primary market, I would be all for it. I know that this is easily going to go for like $300 to $500 on secondary.
Yeah.
When it actually drops, but I'm excited for it. I have, again, cautious optimism for it once it actually comes out. But yeah. The final one, though, that I cannot wait for, and I know that I think that this is the most recent release that we're looking at, or the soonest release that we're looking at. The Weller 114 7-year-old foolproof. Knowing that there are organizations, stores, groups, whatever in Lexington who have already picked this and that it's going to be coming out soon, I'm like freaking out over this. Like I'm so ready to have at least one bottle of it. And I know it's $50 a bottle, but a foolproof Weller. I'm so excited for it. I just can't wait.
Yeah.
I
was sitting here going, when are you going to mention this? You kept, saying all the different releases that are coming out, and I'm like, is he going to get to it?
No, it was the one that I wanted to say for the grand finale. I think that this is going to be what a lot of people are going to be holding out for. Aside from the Van Winkle and the Antique Collection bottles, I think that this is just going to be something that's on everybody's radar. Between that and some of the limited releases from Heaven Hill, I think this is at the top of everybody's list.
I got 2 that we haven't mentioned that are the top of my list.
Yeah, please go ahead.
First one, Four Roses Limited Edition.
I think I mentioned it in passing, but yes, I agree with you.
Either way, excited about that one. The Wilderness Trail single barrels.
Oh, heck yeah.
I'm so excited for those.
Absolutely.
Because one of our listeners and friends also just did a pick of this. I am super excited for it. Adam Terry just did a pick. Hopefully when it comes out I can get a bottle. But it's
at least one.
At least one case. But I'm just so excited for it because I love their profile, and I think that having different characteristics is going to be great because I have to imagine with it being 4 years old, they had to get a little crafty with the blending, and for me, this is going to be a great insight to what an actual 4-year bottled and bond barrel is like, which is just going to be great because I don't get that much. I'm not going on barrel picks. I just want to see what different barrels are like. I know New Riff and Wilderness Trail, and when Castle and Heat comes out, they're going to be doing some blending to get a very specific profile, which is totally fine. But I want the raw product. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be nice to see that come out.
Anyway, that is our look back and look forward to 2019. I brought something kind of interesting to the table for us to review for this week's episode. It's the 13-year-old Old Fitz Bottled and Bond. It's the 2019 spring release. I am really freaking excited for this. I will say, though, I would like to, for us, in order to acclimate our palates, try what is now the defunct version of Old Fitz Bottled and Bond, non-age stated and everything. I've got this handle sitting here on the table. I figure that, we could take a little bit of time just to, cleanse our palates, reacclimate ourselves to what is essentially a weeded Bottled and Bond product from Heaven Hill. So I say let's go ahead and try this first before we do a full deep dive into our review.
Can I get more of this? I want Heaven Hill to make more of this.
Oh, I want a handle of this in such a bad way. I don't have a whole lot of it left. I mean, have as much as you want. I honestly don't mind.
Oh, I have to be able to drive, so no.
Old Fitz has been one that I've never gotten into. Not that I've never liked it. It's just I've never had the opportunity of drinking this, so I'm really excited about this.
Oh, okay. Cool. This was another product that Heaven Hill purchased from what was essentially the Stitzel-Weller distillery. Old Fitz was produced there for a really long time, and then they took over this brand. It wasn't up until a couple of years ago that the standard Old Fitz Bottled and Bond product was discontinued by Heaven Hill, which is such a shame because I really do enjoy this bottle. Again, I probably have about 5-6 ounces left here. Maybe more like 4.
One Perry pour later, he's 2 ounces.
I got the fun stopper in.
The fun stopper.
Yeah, the handles come with fun stoppers. They're more of a let's keep Perry safe stopper.
Yeah. Somehow it didn't work.
I didn't pour that much.
Comparatively.
I poured more than you guys, but I didn't pour that much.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
This is so good, man.
Wow.
And just knowing the price of this, this is a good question. What would you price this at?
I mean, I haven't tasted it on the palate yet.
I would say taste it before you answer that question.
Yeah. Because based off the nose, it's special. But that also could be me transitioning just from a regular rocks glass to
Sure.
to the to the Glencairn. We're talking retail?
Mm-hmm. Retail.
I think I would sit at 60, 70.
Wasn't this 38?
I think for a handle, it was 30.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. It's so
No,
good.
it really doesn't.
Yeah, I was
so good.
I'm just trying to justify this.
No, a handle of this was about $30.
It's $10 more than getting a handle of JTS
handle-
Brown or something like that.
I think a handle of this should probably be at 85.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, it's so my only complaint for this bourbon is at times it seems a little corn forward, and I think it's just 'cause I'm so used to having some of the rye in their mash bill.
I think that is a product of just being a weeded bourbon.
Yeah.
We talked last week about how we kind of went through the same period where, with Larceny, we didn't, and I mean, this is the same distillery, same mash bill, too. Just a different age, just different proof and product and everything. We just went through a phase where we couldn't drink it as much.
Yeah.
I could drink this all day right now.
Oh, I think the proof has been a saving grace for this. If it was lower, I can't say that I would like it as much. And I mean, if you look at the 80 proof that they're offering now, I don't think I've ever bought a bottle of that.
Well, keep in mind though, again, same mash bill, roughly the same year. Larceny is 92 proof.
That's true. Yeah, it's right in the middle there. I don't know. So Larceny's pretty new, and it definitely was a replacement to this under a different name with a slightly different proof. I'm okay with that. Do I still wish this was around? Absolutely.
Oh yeah, heck yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Heck yes.
This is just, and they just needed an upgrade, and they did in a huge way. But it upgraded the price as well.
Yeah. No kidding.
So
No kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you on the saving grace is a little bit of it being the proof.
yeah, which is don't get me wrong.
Because the 80 proof, if it's at 80 proof, I would be like, okay, come on, come on.
Well, that being said, though, the 86 proof that has since been discontinued in favor of an 80 proof, the 86 proof was fantastic.
I remember
really,
you like doing a stream and thinking, I'll revisit it. Why not? And you're like, actually, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
pretty darn good.
I like it quite a bit. But we do have something else on the table, and that would be the spring release of the Old Fitz Bottled and Bond from Heaven Hill. It is 13 years old and 100 proof. On the shelf at $130.
I love the bottles.
I love this decanter.
It's so pretty.
I love the classic feel to it. I want to say something about this bottle too. I got this in a trade with friends of the show, Married with Bourbon. You can find them on Instagram if you would like to. Unfortunately, this did leak a little bit in transition. But what was kind of cool about it is that the leaked bourbon aged the label a little bit. So it looks a little bit older than it actually is. Yeah. The cork is super hefty, as you can hear from that.
That's nuts.
It's I want to go ahead and say this. I tried a little bit of this earlier, just so I could understand what I was getting into. And I think I've had all 3 of last year's releases of the Old Fitz Bottled and Bond too. But I wanted to make sure that, my palate was in the right place, my brain was in the right place before I really got into this.
I kind of wish they'd take a note from Booker's book on this a little bit. They've got the green back again, which I thought was associated with the 11 year, and I was hoping it would be more of a radical color change because they've already had green, black, and red on the Old Fitz.
Yeah, but the old Fitz Bottled and Bond has green.
I know, but like the red Old Fitz Bottled and Bond that they had for the 14 year.
Oh, I love that bottle.
Yeah, and then they had a black for the 9 year, and then they had a green for the 11 year. Maybe they're doing green and black as alternating fall and spring releases. Who knows? I just wanted something crazy. Like if it showed up and it was purple, I wouldn't be that mad.
I don't know. Like, imagine taking this bottle after you're completely done with it and taking the labels off, taking everything off of it, just stripping it. Dude, that would be a beautiful
The best decanter.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the cool thing is I go thrift shopping a lot just because I reuse quite a bit. Like a lot of my clothes are even from Goodwill. I just prefer to do that. That's what I like doing. I go to peddler's malls all the time. You can actually find this decanter from original release with nothing in it on random shelves. So like I've gone in and on 2 to 3 different occasions found old Fitz Distillery decanters from like the 70s and 80s just on the shelf with the corks all broken down and the same topper and everything just sitting on the shelf. It's nuts. I mean, it's not even an old school feel. It's just old school. Like they just completely redid the label, slapped it on there, put new juice in there. And I love that. It's kind of the Maker's Mark-ish thing where they just like, I have no reason to change the label, so I'm not.
You know what I love?
Yeah.
The nose.
I got caught up in talking how it looks. It smells pretty
Yeah,
good.
same here. Yeah. The juice is probably better.
It's really sweet on the nose. I think that is, just a product of it being a weeded bourbon.
Yep.
But I am getting more butterscotch and caramel than I am anything on the nose. There's actually a little bit of like a Bananas Foster note there too, where it's that kind of browned banana.
I'm getting that a little bit, not a ton. I'm definitely getting the caramel notes and stuff. It's almost like those like cheap nuts that you put on top of ice cream a little bit.
Oh, pralines?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
I'm getting that a little bit. Which those are not, I wouldn't even say those are a nutty.
I'm getting a
quality.
fried plantain.
See, I think that's what I'm getting
fried
at.
plantain.
Yeah.
Those are some weird bananas, man.
See, fried plantains though, like have that caramelization. It has
Right.
that. Oh, it's just good. Have you ever had fried plantains though?
I've actually not had them. I've had them in, there's a little tiny restaurant like within 200 feet of my house that does a lot of dishes with plantains in them.
You need to have traditional fried plantains because it's such a specifically a traditional dish, like a Hispanic dish. Oh, it's so good. It tastes like because plantains are like just in its original form is terrible.
Yeah, they're not great. They
They
look like
aren't.
weird bananas.
Yes, fried plantains. You get like a sugary, like all the sugars released after you fry them, and you get this caramelization.
Oh, okay.
This sugary kind of sweet smell that you're getting, but it's not like a banana.
I might have to try that place next to me. I bet they probably do that.
I see all of that. I totally do. I get a little bit of like a toasted marshmallow note as well on the nose. There is definitely something leafy green on the nose. I'm not entirely sure what it is. It might be like a banana leaf, but I cannot quite pick it out.
I don't know. This is interesting. The fact that you're just getting such a broad spectrum is nuts.
It's just one of those moments that I'm like specific. This is what it is.
Yep. The palate to me is a lot darker than the nose is. I'm getting tobacco notes, a little bit of like. I honestly, it's not even real leather. It's synthetic leather that I'm finding on the palate. I'm still finding that green note. There's kind of a spicy like pepper note
That's what I was going
to it
for.
as well, like a chili or a red pepper, which is weird for a wheated bourbon.
See, I was getting more of a cracked pepper.
I could see that. Yeah, it's in the pepper family,
Yeah.
but I definitely see, a pepper note in there.
I'm going to disagree with you guys a little bit. I think the nose holds over to the palate pretty well. I definitely get a little more of the darker notes, the pepper, but the initial stuff is just heightened for me.
I guess more on the finish. Back of the palate to the finish is where I'm getting the cracked pepper,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
the leather, tobacco notes.
The finish is amazing.
No,
in
I think
this.
so too.
I usually look towards like 115 plus for the really, really strong, like honey, drip down your throat type finishes that I associate with like a 4 or 5 in our process that we do, but this is strong. This is really strong.
Yeah.
If only I could just buy this daily.
This is not one of the best bourbons I've had in the past year.
It's not, but I think as far as like just I think it's worth the purchase to me. I like it quite a bit, but I think I like the 11-year better, which is strange because typically people associate age with quality.
I think that's a whole nother topic to get into.
Yeah.
Is the misconception of age to quality.
Just based on this, though, I have liked the 11-year-old better. Mm-hmm. The 14-year-old, though, far superior to this. Far, far superior to this. Could have been distilling season, could have been, just the barrels that they selected from and everything, but I think that this is good, just not nearly as good as the 14-year from last year was. That being said, though, I think that we need to go ahead and start dissecting this in our review system. We have a system of nose, palate, finish, and price. Each category is out of 5, and then we tally it up for a total out of 20. Anybody want to go first?
Yeah, I think the nose is probably one of the strongest points for me on this. I think honestly it's a 3.5.
That's exactly what I gave it.
Yeah, I think it brings a note that I don't get from a lot of other bourbons, which I personally think is phenomenal. And I also like the idea that it's a weeder, so I'm not getting a ton of rye spice or heavy spice, but it's still bringing a lot of interesting sweet notes to it that carry through on the palate. And I know the palate probably shouldn't play into the nose as much, but consistency for me is big, and it kind of shows quality off, and they definitely did it with this one for me.
I actually, the more time that I've spent with the nose, the more that I've liked it. It reminds me of Curtis and I have been there together, but New Orleans. It has that just sugary atmosphere to it. It smells like there's something really specific in the air in New Orleans that I just absolutely love. Whether it's, the baked dough from Café du Monde or
beignets.
Yeah, exactly. But it just seems to emulate that. And while it's not perfect or not the best nose, I think that it, again, is about a 3.5 for me. It is so inviting. And I want to have more of this on the nose. I would, to quote somebody, I'd make a candle out of this.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for the nose, I'm going to up the ante a little bit and put it at a 4.
Wow.
All right.
I know that's kind of a bold number for it, but it's such... And this is more... Me, I love wheated bourbons. And the nose on this is just so sweet, so fried plantain. I guess one thing that I would say I wish I had a little more of was the floral note. I wish I had a little bit of that floral note that usually some of those wheated bourbons would have. But overall, I think this is such a solid nose.
I could see like a Four Roses style floral note in this being phenomenal.
There was a note on the nose that I was failing to pick up on, and it's very specifically like a clementine or whatever those small oranges are. Mm-hmm. It's definitely present on the nose. The nose for me though does not translate into the palate. The palate is like totally left field from the nose. It starts introducing like brown sugar notes. It starts introducing definitely those wheat notes. Some of the corn flavors as well. I almost get a molasses flavor to it as well. And I think that there's a floral note as well that I was missing on the nose that I'm finally picking up on the palate. I think the palate's really pretty good in a different way from the nose, but I would say still as good as the nose. So I'm going to again give it a 3.5.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, for me, I think the nose was the best part and the strongest part for me.
Mm-hmm.
For the palate, I gave it a 3. I thought it was good. It somewhat translated some of the sweetness to it. It had more of the caramel, kind of the cinnamon notes. But I don't think that it translated that sweet banana, like fried plantain note that I wanted. Because it was so nice to have that fried plantain on the nose. I wanted it not to be prevalent there on the palate, but just enough.
Sure.
Just a little hint of like, hey, we're going to continue this through to that point. And that's where I was like, but I kind of want more of that. So with that, I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 3 for a different reason, actually. There was notes on the palate that I thought I would have rather seen on the nose. Like I got more of the floral, like you said, on the palate. I got a little bit more of the dark notes on the palate, but it just, I don't know. For me, it didn't seem like it was a complete transition from the nose like I wanted it to. I got some of the plantains. It wasn't enough. I don't know. It feels like it's a little confused. It's doing some things that I really like as far as like transitioning from nose to palate to finish, but it's not a smooth transition exactly.
Start, stop.
Yeah.
I get that.
I don't know. So it leaves me kind of conflicted with the palate, but it's not bad by any means. It's just middle of the road. And for, a bourbon of this price, I kind of expected a little bit more, I guess. So I'm just going to leave it at a 3.
What about the finish, though?
Finish? I actually thought that was a little bit stronger in the palate. I gave it a 3.5. It got a little darker. Kind of went into some of those notes. Like, when you caramelize something and you just almost barely burn it a little bit, and it gets into that kind of like crispy caramelization.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's got a little bit of that on the finish.
I get that.
And, the oak really starts to show up on the finish, which is great because it's 13 years. You're expecting it at this point. And some like George T. Stagg style dark notes start showing up. Not nearly as in depth, but, it's starting to get there. Which could have been why we thought the 14 was maybe a little bit better, is just because some of those notes stood out a little bit more. But I think it's a 3.5.
I give mine a 3.25, which I usually don't do. It's just in between.
Sure.
It's in between a 3.5 and a 3. Just because I think it has something to do with that start-stop motion of like nose, stop, palate, stop. And I really like the pepper notes, the tobacco notes that I was getting, more of those darker kind of feels. I didn't get as much of the kind of oak barrel that I was kind of wanting, or some of those darker chocolatey notes that I was hoping for. I just got an overwhelmingly sense of pepper, like a pepper spice to me, which is totally different from what the nose was. So with that, I think 3.25, I was like, it's good. It's just it's different. It's so different from what it started at.
So I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to give the nose, the palate, and the finish the exact same value. It's all three going to be 3.5. I think that the nose introduces something really unique. So does the palate. And I think that once it gets to the finish, it incorporates both of those aspects into a way that isn't trying to challenge one or the other. I think that they kind of entertain each other and invite each other to be a part of what they're. And I know that this is kind of a metaphorical way of explaining why I enjoy this, but it's one or the other is not overpowering. I think that they play well together. Where some of the sweeter notes on the nose are present, the darker notes on the palate tend to accept them and kind of play off of them once it gets to the finish. I think that this is a really, really well-balanced whiskey. I think overall it is. I mean, if somebody were to go, what's one of the easier drinkers or one of the more approachable drinkers, I would say this. Just because, you're not having to fight throughout all of it. It just has something for everybody.
I could definitely see that. And it's nice that it's 100 proof. It makes it approachable.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's bottled and bond, man.
Yeah, dude.
Can't go wrong.
100 proof
usually.
bottle and bond.
Yeah.
There's something. That's a special point.
Which leads me, of course, to the price, which I gave a 4. And that leads me to a 14.5 out of 20. I know that this is in the realm of, I would say, semi-premium brands. I think this one is worth it. I think that if you are looking at the back row of bourbons at a store and you're not entirely sure, I think this could be up your alley. I think it's approachable too. This is one of the better things I've had this year. I will say that much.
See, I lean towards more of thinking like, if I was going to give something a 4, I'd think about paying secondary for it. If I was giving it a 5, if I saw it on secondary, I'd grab it. This one, if I could get it at retail, I'd grab it. I don't know if I'd do it if it was secondary. I give it a 3. I think it was definitely appropriately priced. I mean, you're looking at $10 a year. I feel like that's probably fair. It's just, it's nuanced, but it's not consistently nuanced throughout the entire experience for me. So I gave it a 3. There's other releases I had from them that I liked better. This is definitely not bad by any means. I mean, if you see this in a bar, definitely try it. Give it a try. But if you're just seeking out a bottle just to say that you have an Old Fitz and you're looking at paying secondary, maybe look at grabbing the 14 or the 11. They're a preference for me. So, I don't know. For me, that's going to leave me at a 13. So, it's not too bad. Still leaving it in that kind of maybe just grab it at a bar range as opposed to buying it. But
yeah,
it's all going to come down to price that you actually find this at, because so many people are going to look at the fancy decanter as soon as it comes in and think, "Bet I can fetch $200 for that," and they can
at least.
Yeah. So
I give mine a 3 as well. It's really good.
Yeah.
I think it's a good bourbon. I would recommend it for somebody to try it, at least. I think the price point's just a little too high for what you're getting. I guess it's more in the fact that I want it to be more of a transition, like a gradient. where it starts, kind of transitions
Yeah.
into this.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little too full stop, full start, full stop, full start.
Yeah. I get that.
And I think the price point, I think it's a good price point just in the sense that, you're not going to be able to find that kind of stuff. So with that, I mean, I gave it a 13.25. So it's definitely a recommend. Like, if you see this, you should definitely try it. I don't know if I would say, like, buy a whole bottle.
This is my first bottle from this series. So, last year Heaven Hill announced that they were going to be doing a seasonal release of their Old Fitz Bottle and Bond. It was going to vary in year and distilling season and everything. And this is my first one that I've owned. I love this bottle. I think that the bottle itself is probably worth
Well, okay.
$60 to $70, regardless of the juice that's inside of it. It's a beautiful display piece. I think that, people will come up to it and talk about it, ask you about it and everything. I don't have anything wrong with this bottle. I understand that it's pricey. I get it. I got this in basically a trade, for a couple of bottles. It is what it is.
I think, okay. I mean, taking that into consideration, I think I would up it to a 3.5 for the price, which puts me at a 14.
Yeah.
It's not the best
No,
thing
it's
I've had.
it's
good.
definitely not the best.
It's really good.
Yeah, I think that it's weird because I feel like we should have been more excited about this. I've been excited about this. I love this bottle. I've tried to show you guys how excited I am about it.
Yeah.
And I understand that you're not, but I think this is an interesting, exciting, special bottle for me, for us. And
Yeah, so 14, you gave it a...
14.5.
That's not far off. And you gave it a 13?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's good. I'm curious to see what it's like when it opens up more.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes I've had bourbons, especially in recent, the Four Roses limited edition from 2017. That thing was phenomenal when I opened it. And now it's a whole different animal. And it's in a good way. So, I mean, it's really kind of, and I don't, flattened out is going to be a bad way to put it, but it's become more consistent from nose, palate, and finish. I mean, that's what I want from this. That's the only thing holding this back. Because the fried plantain thing that we've kind of pegged this bourbon with, I can't think of anything else that's got that flavor.
No, I can't either.
No.
And, it's so unique that if you're thinking, man, every time I go to the restaurant that, has fried plantains, I get them. Go pick this up. This is your thing.
Yep.
But somebody that's never had them, I'm just like, maybe this is not my thing. I can't relate to it as much, I guess.
I would definitely try it.
Oh, well,
if you haven't had them, you should try it.
Yeah. Obviously, I need to get cultured, but it's just I don't know. I can't relate to it as much as everyone else here. So that's probably why my score is a little bit lower. It's not that I'm not excited about it, because trust me, all the Old Fitz releases have been phenomenal. And the bottle's beautiful, and it's like, I can't believe I spent that much money on it. And then you get finished with the bottle, and you're like, oh, wait, I still have the bottle. I still got the whole bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think unanimously it's a mostly recommend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would say.
Oh, I think it's a recommend.
Yeah.
It's a recommend, and if you kind of identify with the notes that we mentioned, then this is a definite recommend.
Yeah, for sure. But that does not exclude us from Tips and Bits. So we have to finish out the show with Tips and Bits, where we recommend things that don't necessarily have to be bourbon, but, you know, if we've been enjoying something recently, we want you to enjoy it as well. So, gentlemen, what are your tips and bits this week?
I got one. This is kind of a cop-out, but also something I've been watching recently again. The Office.
Damn it. That was going to be my tips and bits.
Right?
It's such a good show.
Before it leaves Netflix, please watch it. Because I feel like half my humor is made up from The Office.
Yeah.
And I need that to continue.
Yeah.
As soon as Michael Scott leaves, you can also leave. But it's still...
Even then, it's still pretty solid, though.
It's not that bad after he leaves.
I didn't like it that much.
It's not great, but it's not as bad as people thought it was.
The cringe factor goes down after he leaves.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And if the first, first 4 seasons, that's the prime.
It's phenomenal.
Prime
the
Office.
first season, like the first couple episodes, it's a little rough just because you're getting identified with the characters.
Yeah.
But then you go back and watch it after you're established. Perfect.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. But that would be my tips and bits. If I have to come up with another one, Jessie Reyes just came out with a new album. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of her. Her voice is phenomenal. It's something to listen to. Some of the music maybe is not my thing. It kind of goes out of my realm of stuff, but her voice is phenomenal. And if you've probably heard her and don't even know it because she does a lot of features. Like she did 2 features on the new Eminem album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. She's great, man.
No clue.
Definitely recommend it.
That's so funny. Mine was going to be The Office as well. Like, just before it gets, kicked off Netflix, definitely go watch it. But if we're going something else, then I would say Over the Rhine in Cincinnati.
Man. Yeah.
If you have a chance to go in Cincinnati, Ohio, go to Over the Rhine. There's so many places to eat. It's such a good kind of area to be at. There's the Eagle, Pontiac. There's Findlay Market. There's just anything and everything. All food. There's Rheingeist, which is a brewery. All those kind of things. They're just really fun to be at. So, Over the Rhine. If you have a chance to be in Ohio, in Cincinnati, go there.
I love The Office. It's such a great show. I mean, it's so classic. But if you're looking for something to replace The Office, Parks and Rec.
It's a good one.
Is a great show. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is in that same kind of realm of comedy, but a little. Curtis is shaking his head. I don't agree with that. It's the same realm of comedy, but a little bit more over the top.
No, it's the same realm of comedy with Andy Samberg.
Well,
it's specifically Andy Samberg's I don't know. It's his child for sure.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love it. The episode that starts with them in the in the room where they inflate that giant inflatable inside of the break room. Terry loves his yogurt.
Yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine's a really good show. Yeah, I think that's all I have for this week. Thank you all so much for listening this week. If people want to follow up with you guys on social media, where can they do that?
I'm at My Bourbon Finder on Instagram and Facebook now.
On Instagram, you can find me at KurtCon. On Twitter, Kurt_Con15.
Awesome. If you would like to follow up with me, I am at PRitter1492 on all social media channels. If you'd like to follow up with the show, we are at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Send comments or questions to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you guys. If you have something that we would like to, or you would like for us to address on the show, again, that is thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. Bourbonshop.threadless.com is where you can find all of our apparel and merch. We're going to be having a free shipping sale here very, very soon. If you are not a member of the Facebook group, you can head over to facebook.com and search for This Is My Bourbon group. You have a couple of questions just to make sure that you know what the show is about. and we would be happy to bring you in there. And then last but not least, of course, the big one, patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. For as little as $1 a month, you become a patron of the show. The tiers for being a patron have just been recently updated, so please go and check that out. The base tier, of course, is $1, and that is just to support us. And I threw in, just for the heck of it, $100 a month. You absolutely do not have to do that, but there are some very special, very unique prizes that are associated with that tier. So again, patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. Please do become a patron of the show. Again, no pressure. Thank you all so much for listening. Next week, not sure just yet. Maybe you guys will be back on?
Sure.
Who's to say?
Sounds good.
We'll find out, yeah. Thank you all again. I will see you next week, but until then, I'm Perry.
I'm Curtis.
And I'm Swan.
And this is My Bourbon Podcast.